Let's get something straight. You were not born to follow the crowd. You were born to lead your life. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that. You started measuring your worth by how many people liked your post, how closely your life matched someone else's timeline, how much your opinions fit the script that everybody else is reading from. And you know what that's doing to you? It's exhausting. It's shrinking you. It's keeping you stuck in patterns that don't even feel right for you, but you keep doing it anyway. Why? Because it's safe, because the crowd gives you cover, because standing out makes you feel like a target. Here's the truth. Most people are not living their life. They're living the version they think is acceptable. They're following trends, not truths. They're chasing validation, not meaning. They're reacting, not creating. And I'm here to remind you, if you want a life that actually feels good to live, you have to stop blending in and start breaking through. Let me teach you something important about your brain. You are wired for belonging. It's human. It's ancient. Your survival once depended on fitting in. But the problem is, your dreams don't live in the crowd. Your potential doesn't live in safety. It lives in risk. It lives in decisions. It lives in moments where you choose to trust your gut instead of going with what's popular. And those moments, that's where leadership begins. That's where freedom begins. Leading your life isn't about shouting louder than anyone else. It's not about becoming an influencer or always getting it right. It's about being brave enough to listen to yourself. And that's hard, because we've been taught to doubt ourselves, to look for signs outside of us instead of trusting the signals within us. That ends today. You want to know what leadership really looks like? It looks like saying no when everyone else says yes. It looks like walking away from drama, even if it makes you feel lonely at first. It looks like choosing rest over burnout, clarity over noise, truth over comfort. That's leadership. That's power. And it begins with a decision, a single, small, inconvenient, powerful decision to trust yourself more than you trust the crowd. Now let's talk about being the flow. What does that mean? It means you stop chasing, you stop forcing, you stop bending yourself into a shape that makes everyone else happy but leaves you feeling empty. It means you start creating momentum from the inside. It means you build a life that reflects your values, your priorities, your truth. You become the current, not the driftwood. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you start showing up differently, when you stop waiting for permission, when you stop asking what will they think, and start asking what do I think. The crowd will always have something to say. Let them. It's not your job to convince them. It's your job to lead yourself. And yes, people might not get it at first. You might lose friends. You might disappoint others. But you know what's worse than that? Disappointing yourself over and over again for the rest of your life. You do not want to wake up 5 years from now realizing you traded authenticity for approval. You don't want to live a life that looks good but feels hollow. You want peace. You want purpose. You want flow. And the only way to get that is to step off the path that everyone else is walking and start carving your own. So what now? You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for clarity. You stop waiting for someone to say, you're ready. And you just go. Lead your life, one decision at a time, one honest moment at a time, one boundary at a time. You don't need to follow the crowd anymore. You were never meant to. Be bold enough to be misunderstood. Be strong enough to be different. Be wise enough to know that the people who truly matter will find you on the path where you are yourself. Stop following. Start flowing. And never forget, you already have everything you need. You're not behind in life. You're not late. You're just too busy watching everyone else to see what's already within you. That's what happens when you follow the crowd. You lose sight of your own voice. You drown in comparison. You settle for the rhythm of someone else's drumbeat. And the worst part, you start believing that's all there is. You start believing that what works for them must be what works for you. But deep down, something feels off. You wake up tired. You feel disconnected from your decisions. You say yes when you want to scream no. That's the cost of following the crowd. You give away your power in pieces, and one day, you don't recognize yourself anymore. Let's get honest. How many decisions are you making out of alignment just because it's what others expect? How often do you hold your tongue just to keep the peace? How many times have you ignored that gut feeling, your inner knowing, because it wasn't what everyone else was doing? It happens more than we like to admit. But here's the good news. Just because you've followed the crowd up to now doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. The moment you realize you're not leading your life is the moment you can start. Now, I know it sounds overwhelming. Leading your own life? That feels like pressure, like you're supposed to have it all figured out. But that's not what leadership means. Leading your life doesn't mean you know every answer. It means you're willing to ask the questions that matter. It means you're willing to pause long enough to ask, is this even what I want? Most people never stop to ask that. They just keep going, keep performing, keep following. But you're different, or at least you're ready to be. Because if you've read this far, if you're listening, it means something inside of you is waking up. You're tired of going with the flow. You're tired of fitting in. You want a more. You want peace over performance, purpose over pressure, direction over distraction. And that shift starts small. It starts with one act of honesty, one moment of courage, one truth spoken out loud. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to change your pattern. That's how you shift from following the crowd to leading your life. Start paying attention to what energizes you versus what drains you. Start noticing when you feel small, when you feel silenced, when you feel stuck. Those aren't flaws. They're signals. They're the truth trying to rise up in you. And that truth, that's where the flow begins. Flow is not about everything being easy. Flow is about alignment. It's about finding a way of living that honors who you are, not who you think you're supposed to be. It's about making decisions from clarity, not confusion. It's about saying yes to things that move your soul and no to the things that only feed your ego. Now let's be real. The moment you stop following the crowd, you will feel alone. The silence will be loud. You will doubt yourself. You will question your worth. That's normal because we've been conditioned to think that belonging is about being the same. But real belonging, it comes from standing firm in who you are and finding the people who meet you there. They may be fewer, but they are untruer. So I want to challenge you today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Do one thing that's fully unapologetically yours. Speak your truth in a conversation. Take the road that feels right, even if it doesn't make sense to others. Stop pretending you're fine if you're not. That is leadership. That is bravery. That is flow. You don't have to live your life in the shadow of someone else's path. You have your own light. You have your own direction. You have your own timing. Start trusting it. You don't need permission to be who you are. You just need to stop giving your power to the crowd and start giving it back to yourself. You were born to lead your life. Start now. Be the flow. Most people live their entire lives following patterns they never chose. They go to schools they were told to attend, take jobs they think they're supposed to have, say things that sound right instead of what's real, and they call that living. But is it really? Is that freedom? Is that fulfillment? Or is that just survival wrapped in the disguise of success? The truth is, when you follow the crowd, you trade authenticity for approval. And approval fades. It's never enough. No matter how much of it you get, it never fills the void of not being true to yourself. There's a moment in every person's life when something clicks, a realization, a spark, a voice inside that whispers, this isn't who I'm meant to be. Most people silence that voice. They drown it in noise, in distractions, in more of what's familiar. But a few people, just a few, listen. And that changes everything. Because the moment you start listening to your own voice instead of the crowd's, you start reclaiming your power. And that's when you become dangerous, in the best way. Leading your life isn't about being louder or smarter or more successful than anyone else. It's about being real. And that takes guts, because real means messy. Real means vulnerable. Real means you stop trying to be what everyone wants and start becoming who you are. And people might not like that. You might make them uncomfortable. You might not fit into their expectations anymore. But let me ask you this. Do you really want to live a life built around keeping other people comfortable? Or do you want to live a life that's yours? You don't need to be fearless to lead your life. You just need to be willing to face discomfort, willing to question your habits, willing to take responsibility for your choices. Every time you choose to go your own way, even when it's scary, you're building the muscles of self-trust. And that self-trust is more valuable than any applause from the crowd. People often ask, how do I find my purpose? But maybe the better question is, what's getting in the way of me living it? Usually the answer is, trying to fit in. When you follow the crowd, your focus shifts outward. You become obsessed with image, comparison, expectations. You lose touch with your instincts. You forget how to hear your own thoughts. But when you begin to lead your life, your focus turns inward. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what do I believe? That's the beginning of clarity. That's the beginning of flow. Being the flow means you're not just reacting to life. You're responding to your inner guidance. You're not looking left and right to see what everyone else is doing. You're looking forward. You're moving in alignment with your truth, even if the path is less crowded, especially if the path is less crowded. Because real growth never happens in comfort zones. It happens when you feel the fear and move anyway. And yes, it will be lonely sometimes. But being alone is not the same as being lost. In fact, some of the most powerful clarity comes in solitude. In the silence of not following, you finally hear the wisdom that's been waiting inside you all along. And from that place, decisions become easier. Your boundaries get stronger, your values get clearer, your direction becomes undeniable. You are not meant to live a copy-paste life. You are not here to be another version of what already exists. You are here to create, to evolve, to bring something new into this world through your thoughts, your voice, your presence. That doesn't happen by following. That happens by leading. It happens by trusting the flow inside of you more than the noise around you. So if you're waiting for a sign to stop blending in, this is it. If you're waiting for permission to be different, this is it. If you've been doubting yourself, if you've been shrinking to stay accepted, if you've been holding back because you're scared to be seen, this is your moment. Stand up, take the risk, walk your path, even if no one else is walking it yet. Because one day, someone will look at your courage and think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And just like that, your bravery becomes someone else's permission. That's what leaders do. That's what flow creates. Not just change in you, but change in others. Lead your life. Be the flow. Don't follow the crowd. You were meant to stand out. When you look around and everyone seems to be going in the same direction, doing the same things, chasing the same dreams, it can feel like that's the only way to go. But just because a path is popular doesn't mean it's right for you. Just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's meant for you. And deep down, you already know that. You've felt the tension before, that uncomfortable feeling in your gut when you're about to say yes to something that doesn't sit right, just because everyone else is doing it. That's your inner compass trying to speak up. That's your intuition knocking. But when you ignore it, when you bury it under fear or social pressure or the desire to not be different, you lose touch with your own truth. And your truth is your power. We live in a world that rewards fitting in. Conformity gets likes. Trends go viral. It feels good to be accepted, to be part of something. But there's a difference between community and conformity. Community supports your growth. Conformity silences it. Community celebrates your differences. Conformity demands you erase them. And if you're constantly filtering yourself to be digestible for the crowd, you're not living. You're performing. You're surviving. And you were made for more than that. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes when you start trusting yourself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to be loud. It simply knows. And that knowing, that deep sense that you're on the right path for you, is stronger than any applause you'll get for doing what's expected. That's where real leadership begins. Not with controlling others, not with titles or recognition, but with the decision to stop abandoning yourself, to finally say, I'm going to lead my life. I'm going to be the flow. I'm going to stop waiting for the world to tell me who to be. This kind of shift takes courage. It takes work, because you've been trained your whole life to follow, to please, to meet expectations. But here's the truth. Most people won't say out loud, you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them more comfortable. You don't owe your old self a lifetime of playing small. You only owe yourself the chance to live fully, freely, and honestly. That's it. Every time you follow the crowd instead of your heart, a small part of you gets quieter. Your creativity dims. Your passion fades. You become a muted version of who you could be. But the opposite is also true. Every time you choose your own way, even in small moments, your power grows. You become louder, clearer, more rooted in who you are. And that energy, that's what people are drawn to. Not perfection, not popularity, authenticity. Flow isn't something you find outside of yourself. It's something you return to. It's the natural rhythm of living in integrity with who you are. When your actions match your values, when your decisions reflect your truth, when your life feels like yours, not a script you're trying to memorize. And once you feel that kind of alignment, you'll never want to go back. You'll stop needing permission. You'll stop chasing validation. You'll stop looking around for direction because you'll finally be looking within. And listen, not everyone will understand your path. That's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself. The people who are meant for you will find you. They'll recognize you. But that can only happen if you're brave enough to show them who you really are. Don't rob the world of your truth because you're afraid to stand alone. Sometimes standing alone is exactly what leads others to their own awakening. If you've been waiting for clarity, for confidence, for the perfect plan before you make a move, stop waiting. Action creates clarity. Movement builds confidence. And the plan? It unfolds when you start walking, not when you stay stuck. So go. Say the thing. Make the choice. Take the step. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if no one else gets it yet. You weren't meant to blend in. You were meant to be bold, to be brave, to lead. And the world doesn't need more copies of the same idea. It needs more people living in truth, in alignment, in flow. So be that person. Be the flow. Lead your life. Let the crowd watch you from behind as you blaze a path forward that's never been walked before. There comes a point in your life when you have to decide if you're going to keep following the script that was handed to you or if you're going to start writing your own. And that decision is terrifying because it means stepping into the unknown. It means choosing discomfort over familiarity. It means leaving behind what's predictable in exchange for what's real. But if you don't make that decision, you'll wake up one day living a life that looks fine from the outside but feels empty on the inside. You'll be surrounded by people but still feel alone. You'll have achievements but no fulfillment. That's the hidden cost of following the crowd. It numbs your connection to your own life. When you follow the crowd, you unconsciously say yes to rules you never questioned. You adopt beliefs, goals, and habits that were never truly yours. And at first, it's easy to justify. Everyone's doing it, it makes sense, it looks right. But eventually, the truth catches up with you. You realize that your life doesn't feel like it belongs to you. And that ache, that quiet restlessness is not a problem, it's a signal. It's your soul asking for something deeper, something real, something aligned. That's your invitation to take the lead. Leading your life means no longer outsourcing your decisions. It means no longer waiting for someone else to validate your choices. It means you start being radically honest with yourself about what you want, what you need, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. That kind of honesty will shake things up. You might outgrow friendships. You might lose approval. You might even lose a sense of safety. But what you gain in return is something far more valuable. You gain yourself. And here's what most people don't realize. Leadership is not a talent. It's not a personality trait. It's a practice. It's built in the moments when you choose self-respect over people-pleasing. It's built when you take responsibility for your healing, your growth, and your direction. It's built when you stop hiding and start showing up, even imperfectly. That's the work. That's the path. That's what separates the people who drift through life from the ones who live. When you choose to lead your life, you shift your energy from trying to control outcomes to creating them. You stop reacting to circumstances and start responding with intention. You stop waiting for the right time and start realizing you are the right time. That shift creates momentum. And momentum is powerful. It doesn't require perfection. It only requires movement. Movement in your decisions, your habits, your beliefs. And when you align with that movement, you start to feel something you maybe haven't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from everything being real. You stop needing to be someone else. You stop pretending. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You begin to move in harmony with your values, and that's what it means to be the flow. You're no longer trying to keep up. You're creating the rhythm. This way of living changes everything. Conversations become more honest. Relationships become more meaningful. Your work becomes more purposeful. And not because the world changed, but because you did. You started showing up as the person you were always meant to be. And from that place, you attract what's meant for you. You're no longer chasing, you're no longer striving, you're simply aligned. But here's the truth. The world will still try to pull you back into the crowd. Old habits, old voices, old fears, they'll all show up. And that's okay. That's part of the process. The goal isn't to be fearless. The goal is to keep choosing your path even when fear is present. Every time you do that, you reinforce your power. You strengthen your leadership. You deepen your flow. So take this moment to breathe, to pause, and to remember who you are. You are not here to repeat. You are not here to follow. You are not here to live someone else's dream. You are here to lead, to carve your path, to honor your truth, to become the most unapologetic version of yourself. And the beautiful thing is, the moment you begin, the universe begins too. It starts aligning with you. It starts clearing the way. Not because life suddenly gets easy, but because you're finally flowing with it, not against it. Lead your life. Be the flow. And let the crowd watch you from a distance as you rise into everything you were always meant to become.